Let me just start this review by saying this game is awesome, and rather waiting to the end to give you my total overview of it, it's way better than I expected it to be, being a fan of the Remedy games from Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2. This was a solely Rockstar-driven project. With that said, Max Payne 3 does take a far departure from its predecessors in terms of the setting and the feel. Max has always been an incredibly complex character, but Rockstar did a really good job at evolving him into an older, traumatized version of Max Payne. The design of this game does a lot of unique things with video and cinematography. To put you in the mind of someone who is disoriented from substance abuse and trauma, so players may or may not like this lighting. It did take me some time to get used to it. The story itself, though, is very compelling, and you just want to keep playing to see what happens next. Gameplay in Max Payne 3 is absolutely top-notch. The shooting mechanics are fluid and responsive. The slow motion effect allows players to perform some truly cinematic action sequences while actually doing them themselves. This game does do one thing better than any other game I've ever played in my life, and it gets a 10 out of 10 when it comes to this. And that's truly making the player feel like a true badass action hero from a movie. With some of the completely over-the-top fights, and being able to do things like shoot grenades in midair while leaping through panes of glass, wielding dual pistols, blazing, and mowing down enemies all at the same time, this game gets what a third-person action shooter should be, and it gets it right. Max also has some pretty funny one-liners that you would expect from a big action movie.
I'd killed more cops than cholesterol.
There were many times I couldn't help but think to myself, maybe even say out loud, "Yippee Ki Yay, motherfucker." And it's just that kind of game. You really get into it. It's really addicting. It's really fun. It's hard to put it down. In Max Payne 3, the bullet time system has been perfected. You can use it to weave in and out of enemy fire. There are quite a few special bullet time moments where you automatically go into bullet time, kind of like some of the moments in Red Dead Redemption 2 where you're forced to do the Deadeye. And in this game, it's like the epitome. It's the pinnacle of what that is. It's like these over-the-top, amazing shootout sequences where everything is slowed down around you. So as far as regular bullet time goes, you can use it whenever you want. It refills fairly quickly just by shooting enemies when you're out of it. What I was really impressed by were the little details, like how enemies react when you're shooting them in various parts of their body, the extra narration you get from uncovering clues.
Looked like he was keeping an eye on me. Must have thought we were kindred spirits. More and more, I think he was right.
This is Rockstar when they were Rockstar, doing what they used to do, back when they were writing stories and making interesting, original, and edgy content. This game came out just a few years before Rockstar turning into makers of generic, repetitive MMORPG updates to their top-selling games and labeling it as content. If you haven't played Max Payne 1 or 2, or you find yourself unable to appreciate the previous games due to their dated graphics, Max Payne 3 won't disappoint you at all as a standalone game, and it's totally up to par with what you would expect from a modern game in graphics and sound. This is, however, Max Payne with Rockstar in full control. It doesn't have that dark and artistic edge that Remedy brings to their projects, but unlike the first two games, Max Payne 3 very much feels and looks like a modern game. I don't remember games looking this good that long ago. It was really far ahead of its time. And it's certainly better looking and plays smoother than GTA 5, which was released after this game. And honestly, it looks and feels better than most of the games I've played that have come out in the last few years, including Hogwarts. But if I'm being completely honest with you, at first I didn't really like it. And that's a weird thing to say considering all the hype I just gave it. But I didn't like it for reasons that it wasn't a good game. It just wasn't the game that I was expecting. What I wanted was Remedy.
By now, she'd been dead longer than I knew her. I still hadn't really forgiven myself for the Mona business, but I knew that was just grief. The insanity that comes with losing the life you had built. Michelle, I missed her with every part of my being.
What I was getting was Rockstar. So I took a few days away from playing it, but I kept thinking about it. The first few minutes of the story had already gotten their hooks into me, and I just had to know what was ahead. When I let go of my expectations based on the first two games is when I really started to appreciate and enjoy Max Payne 3.
Jesus Christ.
Now I realize this was actually a smart choice for Rockstar to put their own stamp on the game and not try and mimic the artistry of Remedy. So it is lacking that Twilight Zone quality you would get from Remedy, but it's dark in a very different way, in a Rockstar way. And if another Max Payne game is never made, I'm actually really happy with this game being the end. For once, it seems like the ending gives Max some sort of closure and is resolved. Max has learned to live with his demons, saved a family, taken down a human trafficking ring, and given up alcohol. It feels like this is a good ending for Max. An ending that is a bit bittersweet. In the end, he is still alone. In the end, he has still lost everything that mattered to him, but for once, he doesn't see himself as a failure. It's worth mentioning this is by far the most gruesome and darkest of the Max Payne games. At times, it's borderline disturbing. But I finally feel like Max Payne got the redemption he needed, even though on the last mission he himself says it's not about redemption. Throughout the game, you will hear about Max's history, and at one point you will visit the cemetery where his wife is buried, where one of the most epic gun battles ever unfolds. As I said, the creepy Twilight moments we got used to in the first two games are absent, but this mission in the graveyard kind of brings it back just enough. And they managed to keep enough elements of that to make it feel like a Max Payne game. The quest to save a woman, the cutscenes, the narration, the plot twists, and the continued amazing voice acting of James McCaffrey as Max Payne.
Nothing could have prepared me for what was on the other side of that door.
Probably the hardest thing to get used to if you're a fan of the original game is how strange it is to see Max in the daytime and not on the streets of New York City at night. This game is still very dark though, and it's even more unsettling when you uncover what's actually going on and to see it in broad daylight. The game has 14 chapters of story, and depending on the difficulty you play it on, you can expect each chapter to take about 45 minutes, so it's not an incredibly long game. There is a multiplayer version and arcade mode that have lots of grinds and challenges for completionists, and that can add a ton of hours to the game. One of the things I really appreciated about the gameplay in Max Payne 3 is that if you just want to play it for the story, you have different difficulties that can make it very forgiving, while still throwing some decent challenges at the player here and there. It's not all just run and gun. There are a few places where you have to use unique strategy and positioning to clear an area regardless of its difficulty. So there is a small puzzle element to the game, but if you make a mistake, it's nice to know you're not going to be punished too harshly for it. You're usually set back just a few minutes at most. So that makes this game much more accessible to players of all skill levels. Overall, Max Payne 3 is an excellent game with great gameplay, great mechanics, a well-written story, great sound effects, great music, and excellent voice acting. If you're looking for a challenging and engaging action game, and you enjoy linear storytelling or action movies like Die Hard, this is the game for you.
Everyone wanted a ticket for the Max Payne Express.
I highly recommend you check out Max Payne 3. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.